So I'm giving it a minute. I'm going ahead and starting a little bit early just in case. That way, it'll give people time to come in and hopefully get notifications for those who are blessed enough to get the notifications and don't have them hidden from you. Even if, just so you know, some people, if you rely on notifications to tell you anything, good chances are, or chances are good, you won't get one. So I'm thinking about 2/3 of my followers don't see my regular content, don't get notifications, even if they signed up for them. So I'm constantly reminding people, you need to make sure, if whoever your favorite channel is, it doesn't matter who, if you're not seeing content from them and they're regular about putting out, like for me, I put out 5 videos every week. And now I'm going to try to do live shows like this on Sundays, maybe once or twice a month. And if you're not seeing regular content and you're used to seeing it, chances are nothing happened to them, but you've been unsubscribed. The notifications you're just not getting them. There's a whole plethora of little games that go on that prevent people from seeing it once a channel's been targeted, like mine. And I'm not the only one. So shalom. Hello, everyone. Good to see people coming in. I'm hoping I won't have to keep putting my glasses on this time. Looks like I can see this just fine. So I decided to sit inside today because last few days ago, Thursday, when I tried this, I decided to sit outside because I have this beautiful background, but then the sun, even under the umbrella, kept playing weird games with the lighting, and I know that made it kind of frustrating for some people. And plus, Patrick's out there re-roofing our woodshed. It's been needing it for a while. And so, I mean, that fiberglass has been on there for, I don't know, it's been a very, very long time. In fact, I'm trying to remember if it was on there when we bought the place 30, however many years ago, or if he had re-roofed it at some point. But either way, yeah, it needs new roofing so we can keep things dry, especially firewood. It's nice to have dry firewood, especially in rain country. So, hello all. I'm seeing y'all coming in, and I really am glad to see all these people coming in. Watching my son's first Little League game. Oh, fun. Actually, I did have a grandbaby here earlier today. Sundays, the reason Sundays are going to be good days for me to do live shows are also one of the few days I have to shoot videos because it's very rare I actually have grandbabies on a Sunday. So, but I did have one here for a little bit today, and I still managed to get at least one video shot. I was going to try to do 2, but I decided to just do 1 and then go ahead and do the live. I thought about waiting until next week to do live, but next week I have an interview and at noon. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm not sure if I want to reveal that one yet, but it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, but you'll find out about it eventually, one way or the other. Don't worry. So are we at, okay, we're after 1. But yeah, I just thought, well, I'll pop in a couple minutes early. It'll give people time to kind of see what's going on. And I would have put a notification out a little bit sooner, but I still wasn't for sure if I was going to be able to pull this off today. But I knew noon would be a good time for me. My noon. Obviously, for some of you, it's 1, 2, 3 o'clock. And if you're on the other side of the world, you could be in the middle of the night. And chances are you're probably not here watching me unless you can't sleep. So, yes, thumbs up, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I need that. I need all of the thumbs ups and comments and, you know, everything that I can get. I'm hoping someday maybe to get my channel back up to where it once was. Thankfully, I'm still growing. I'm still growing. They haven't prevented me from growing. It's just that I should have been at 400,000 subscribers maybe 6 months ago because they just like, I mean, bam. It was so crazy to look at my analytics and see it going on. You know, you're always going to have your ups and downs, ups and downs. And then ever since I spoke out against this false accusation that they made against my channel, went down there like that, and it's just been staying there, kind of rotting there. I shouldn't say rotting. That's not fair. I'm still getting subscribers. I'm still getting views. So, thankfully there's that. And yes, again, a reminder, because I always get someone say, well, have you tried Rumble? Yes, I'm on Rumble. I'm thinking it's been 3 years, and I put the same videos over there, plus a few more that are no longer allowed here. I've had to remove videos from here and then either reshoot them or remaster them and put them over on Rumble so that they can still be out there. Because, you're supposed to always keep going back and paying attention to every time they make changes that they never warn you about. And sometimes they're over the dumbest things. It's like, oh, really? Oh, that's a banned topic now. I get it. So anyway, it's crazy. So now that we're past noon and people are pouring in. Yeah, I am Donna. So it's not that I'm absolutely new to doing live shows, but it's been 7 years since I was doing live shows. Well, okay, Patrick and I did try one on our mobile phone in 2017. That was the last one we had done until this last Thursday. And the big change was finally just saying, I'm done with CenturyLink. We don't have very many options when you live out in the middle of nowhere for internet that actually works. And doing live streams was just so frustrating even then. And that was before things got worse internet wise. And so it was near impossible. So now that we have Starlink, and I kept saying, I'm not going to do Starlink. I'm not going to do Starlink. Well, if you actually want something that uploads at a reasonable speed and can actually let you live stream and then being able to do interviews, yeah, you got to have something that's actually going to work. So anyway, let's go ahead and get on to the, I'm glad somebody enjoys my humor, for crying out loud. Sometimes I kind of kill myself with my humor. I think I'm kind of funny sometimes. Not always. So I'm glad somebody enjoys it. So I wanted to start off by touching on a question I get frequently. And it's not like I've never answered this in my regular videos, but I know some people really like the live interaction better. But I frequently get questions every time I show anything, no matter what it is, some kind of preserved food, whether it be dehydrated eggs. Usually it's the dehydrated things. Dehydrated zucchini. I brought a few things in just for visual. Dehydrated roast beef. These aren't dehydrated, but they're walnuts from Azure Standard. Best walnuts ever. Best walnuts I've ever had. This is dried, cooked up pinto beans. And what else did I bring in here? And some dehydrated lemon balm. You can see the years on these, 2022, 2024, 2023. So the question I get is, how long will these things last? The most recent one was on if you're putting up, let's say, powdered milk. In fact, somebody actually asked if powdered whole milk was shelf stable. Well, yes, that's the whole point of having powdered milk in the first place, is it's supposed to be shelf stable. How shelf stable is it is going to depend on how you store it. Now, I've had little to no issues with whole milk where I have put up powdered non-fat milk before this was years ago, before I even knew that you could actually get powdered whole milk. I didn't even know it was possible. And especially being able to get it organically. And then, of course, since then, I've even dehydrated some of my own organic, well, not my own, because we don't have dairy animals, but organic whole milk. I've dehydrated it, made it on powder, tasted just like the best stuff I've ever bought from anywhere else, be it Azure Standard or some of these other places I've got organic whole milk. So the purpose is so it will be shelf stable. And how long it's going to last? Most common question I get. Well, some of it will depend on how you store it. So let's talk about these walnuts, for instance. So this is a high fat food. We know what happens to high fat sometimes in storage. It can go rancid, and nuts can be really bad at going rancid. However, the thing you can do to prevent rancidity and have your nuts last for years and years on the shelf is to vacuum seal them. This is vacuum sealed. Uh, yeah, I do find it best when I vacuum seal anything to leave it out on the counter for at least 24 hours to make sure that it was a good seal. Sometimes you might think it is, you pick it up by the lid just to find out it didn't actually seal. So, for instance, this has been back there for a year. I can still pick it up by the lid. I can push on it. There's no give to it. It's still sealed. So this is the roast beef. So the same thing will apply with any of your meats, especially if there's any fat with them in them. Yes, you can leave the fat in the meats. As long as you vacuum seal it, you're not going to get rancidity. And then the little trick that I found out that I was so excited about when I found out by accident. So I've made jerky for years. I've made deer jerky, beef jerky, venison jerky. I've done it for years. But, it's always chewy. That's the way jerky is. And so I decided I was going to try dehydrating turkey and chicken and kind of have the same thing. And it's chewy. It's chewy like jerky. But if you want to eat it like that, that's great. But if you try to cook with it, it doesn't rehydrate. It will always stay chewy unless you can powder it up. But what I found by accident, because I was trying to clean out my freezer and I had a whole bunch of turkey meat in there that I had frozen up, because a lot of times I'll just pack them in there, and freeze the excess meat and then use it for making, turkey a la king and other types of dishes throughout the year. And I decided I wanted to make a room in my freezer, and I just dehydrated it up and just make a chewy snack out of it. Well, because that turkey had been cooked and then frozen and then dehydrated, it came out very light and crispy, and I can use it in anything. So I started trying it with various different things. I started trying that same trick with roast beef, corned beef, chicken, fish. So the two things you can do to make that meat so that it will turn out crispy instead of chewy, so that will rehydrate well, is you either pressure cook or pressure can it and then dehydrate it, or you cook it, freeze it, then pull it out. You only have to let it thaw enough to spread it on your trays and then dehydrate it. It's great. It's great. I love it. I'm just so thrilled with this. Now, you don't have to do that with ground meats. You could try it. I haven't tried that yet, but ground meats they dehydrate up fine. You're cooking them anyway, and they'll dehydrate up fine. I use ground like venison, elk, or beef when I'm making my Italian sauces, especially spaghetti sauce, and I can throw the dehydrated in there along with all the other things because I'm letting my sauce cook for a very long time. It turns out great. So that's not necessary for the ground meats, but pretty much any other meat you can do that with. And boy, it's great. It turns out just as good as freeze-dried, and you don't have to spend the money on a freeze dryer if you don't want to. If you want to, that's cool. But if you can't afford it or you don't want to, there's a little trick for you to get your dehydrated meat to turn out like freeze-dried meat. So I love it. It's an exciting thing to me. So coming back on the shelf life, people always want me to give them these exact numbers, and I really can't do that because there's too many factors in play. It's going to depend on, are your jars, if you're vacuum sealing in jars, for instance, are your jars staying sealed? If your jars aren't staying sealed, you're going to, especially if it's anything high in fat, like dehydrated eggs, for instance, or the nuts, or meat that you've left a lot of the fat in, that no, you don't have to rinse it all out as long as you vacuum seal. You leave that great flavor in there. But if it comes unsealed, it could still go rancid. But if it stays sealed, then it should last for years, as long as it stays sealed. And as long as I'm going to assume that, sorry, text message. Okay, good. She got a message. Okay. It's my daughter-in-law. And, okay. Sorry. Was I saying, I was talking about the shelf life. So yes, as long as it stays vacuum sealed, it should last for years. However, things with high fat, it is possible if you live in a place and you don't have any storage area where you can keep it kind of on the cooler side. I mean, it doesn't have to be cold, just on the cooler side where it's not, blazing hot. It's possible that could cause rancidity. I would not know. I would not know for certain. It would have to be something I tried to see if I vacuum sealed some high fat food into a jar and then maybe left it in my living room for a year next to the wood stove or something. So if anybody has experience in that, that lives in a place you don't have air conditioning, it gets really hot, you don't have a good place to store things like that where it can stay on the cooler side, please share what have been your experiences. Let's see. Thank you for to say replacing now all plastic container. I've been gifted more elk. Any tips? Freezing, cooking and dehydrating, like I was talking about, cooking, freezing, dehydrating, or canning. I do all three with the meats. Freezing, you can get, it's really tricky with freezing, finding something that is as toxin free as possible to wrap the meat in. But I do suggest, if you don't want to have the extra layer of plastic, of getting a good, I always want to say freezer paper. Is it freezer paper or butcher paper? One of them that's got a coating on the inside. I'm not going to say that coating is entirely safe, but you can get away with wrapping up the cuts in just the paper without that extra layer of plastic on the inside. It's all a matter of how you wrap it. One of these days I'm going to do a video, but basically I'll have my freezer paper, and so, or butcher paper, whichever one. I wish I could remember what it is off the top of my head. And I'll put it, usually, it's kind of cut more of in a square, and I'll put the meat at this corner like this, and then I'll wrap that corner over, roll it a couple times, then wrap the other corners in, fold those in, and then finish rolling it, and then just slap a piece of tape on there. And that works really good. I've had meat last for years and years in my freezer without getting freezer burnt, wrapped just like that. I've got elk in there. I'm still trying to work through. That's probably about 3 years old, and it's still good. In fact, we just had dinner last night with our friends and family, because first Saturday every month we have a dinner in this room. This is my ex dance / martial arts studio that we've kind of converted into an everything else room. And I'm sitting at the dining table right now, which is actually 2 big long folding tables. And so I made spaghetti, and I'm still trying to use up that ground elk. And so I just thawed that out and used that in there. And it was still good. I'm thinking it's got to be at least 3 years old. It might be 4 years old. It might be from 2020 now that I think about it. So still good. Just wrapped in paper, not a bunch of extra stuff. So, oh wait, no, that one did have a plat, because we were wrapping that one with a friend, and they were putting plastic in some of that. But I've wrapped some in just the paper and had it turn out just fine. So that was a bad example because I was wrong. And speaking of wrong, I need to clear up the ramen thing. I'm always saying something wrong or reading something wrong and then relaying the information to you wrong as a result. So the other day I was talking about Azure Standard, and I was talking about the ramen. And I could have sworn I read on the package that it was made, produced in the United States. As someone said, it's made in China. So I go to the site and I scroll down. Well, sure enough, it says country of origin, China. How did I miss that? But on the package, obviously, there's one of these somewhere. You can see where it's distributed in the United States. Not the same thing. Sometimes I think when I read stuff like that, I'm like, oh, cool, USA. And I don't read it close enough. And then I relay bad information. And I sincerely apologize for that. It seems like I've been doing that a lot lately. My brain's been going in 50,000 different directions. It's got to be grandbabies. I'm going to blame it on the grandbabies. Having 3 grandbabies, that's got to be it. It's causing brain damage. So I don't have any other excuse except for I'm just, not paying close enough attention. I get sometimes overly excited and I see something and then I read it wrong. Yeah. So I apologize. It is still organic, and I still trust whatever Azure Standard sells, just because there are things that are almost impossible to find in the US. And it's getting to where more and more you can hardly find jars that are even made in the US anymore. Because I don't think Ball, even though they'll claim that they are still made in the US, I don't think they are. I don't think Kerr is either. Kerr and Ball are owned by the same company. Even the US based business, the lids that everybody's touting all the time, and they're good lids. They sent me some free ones and I've had no issues with them. The 4 jars lids, they're great lids. But you got to look closely. The company, it's a family-owned US-based company, which is great. But the lids are made in China. And the reason you're going to see that a lot is because it's not just about that business. It's about the fact that it's getting more and more impossible to try to get anything made in the US, to get it produced here where it actually, isn't going to cost people, $10,000 for one lid or something like that. And it's either you're going to pay a lot more or you're going to pay less. I mean, and get it made in China. It's really disappointing, and it's just what we're seeing all the time, more and more. It's becoming more and more unavoidable. And I know some people like to get on their high horse and, oh, I never buy Chinese made stuff. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You just don't realize it. If you're using a cell phone, if you're using a computer to watch this video, that thing is made in China. So, no matter how, I still think we need to, even if you're in the UK, you're in Australia, you're in New Zealand, wherever you are, I think we still need to do the best to try to do business as locally as we can or within our own country as we can. But there's certain things that are near impossible to find made anywhere but China. And it's sad. It's just the way it is. So reducing our dependency the best we can is the best we can do. So anyway, I did want to clear that up, and let's see. Let me see if I can catch up on. I'm going to go ahead and put my glasses on because my eyes are a little strained today. I'm hoping, Karen, you're right. And hello, fellow Washingtonian, by the way. Yeah, we read what we want to read, don't we? Don't we? I'm guilty. Guilty of that. But it's not on purpose, especially when I go to relay the information. And sometimes I think, too, what I'm doing is I'm relaying the information from something else I read and then got it crossed in my brain. So, yes, unfortunately, the Azure Standard jars are made in China. The Superb brand lids are not. They're actually made in the US. They are more expensive, but they are actually made in the US. So, right. Gabriel Paul's mom. Right. Even if it's made in the USA, it could just be a label. Here's an example. So, even like if you're buying fabric. So I was back when I was making skirts like crazy, to sell. Because I could make as much as 6 skirts in a week and then sell them just as fast as I could make them. And I found the least expensive way to acquire cotton fabric was to buy cotton sheets, king size, and then just cut them as I needed them. Using the fitted sheet was kind of a pain, and you lost a little bit of fabric there, but you got the elastic. If it was good elastic, I'd save that and use it too. So I saw these great sheets. I'm like, oh, these floral patterns. They had pink and they had blue and they had these other patterns. And I'm like, those are great. And they're 100% cotton, $25 for a set of king size cotton sheets, 100% cotton. And I was pretty excited. So I bought a set of each. And when they came in, I'm like, this feels like microfiber. You guys know what microfiber feels like. So I looked at the tag says 100% cotton. And so I'm like, okay, maybe it's just the way they brushed it or something. So I started cutting it into strips, because how I do this whenever I'm cutting strips and squares, I'll measure it out 10 inches, I'll do a snip, and then I'll rip it, and it will rip in a straight line. I love that. You don't have to cut, and then worry about getting it all crooked. It rips in a nice straight line, which microfiber will do as well. But the way it ripped and the way it threaded as it ripped, I recognized it. That was not 100% cotton. I don't think it was any percent cotton. I am positive it was all polyester. And I'm like, so you can't trust labels anymore either. You've got to really know your fabric. You've got to know it. You got to be able to feel it. In fact, I had this cute shirt that I had bought. It was one of those same stupid mistakes. I'd looked up 100% cotton chicken shirt because I wanted a cute chicken shirt in green, and that was 100% cotton. And you're looking at the shirt, and you're looking, that one's dumb. Oh, that one's so cute. And you forget to read all of the stuff. And I got the shirt in and I'm wearing it and I'm like, something about this didn't feel right. And I've worn it a few times. I've worn it in a few videos. I've worn it out and about. And then the other day, especially lately, since I've been getting a lot more into linen, I put that shirt on and I'm like, I know this is wrong. But I was already out and about and I'm like, I'll have to remember to check it when I get home. Well, I forgot. And then I thought about it again yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to go pull that shirt out and read what the label says. 65% polyester. I was so mad. I knew it didn't feel right because I'm getting to where now I'm so sensitive to those things that I wear just anything. I can feel it. It feels wrong. Sometimes it seems like it makes my skin ache. I hate it so much. So 100% cotton, 100% linen. Those are my two favorite fabrics now. And, as much it really for our health, we really got to try to be looking at, 100%, getting away from polyesters, nylon, spandex, lycra, all of that as much as we possibly can. Some certain garments can be hard to get away from that to a degree, but the best we can do, is really going to help us out. And the things I've been learning about linen, and I just love it, and how good it is for your health overall. And science backs it up. Science backs it up. I found a great article on the National Institutes for Health, and it does, it goes through all the studies that were done on linen and how it actually, it's antibacterial and it helps speed up wound healing and more. And, it's got so many great benefits. And that's actually the video I shot today. So I'll be publishing in a couple weeks. I got to edit it though, still. So yeah, you can't even trust your labels anymore. You got to know, it's like with the fabrics, you got to know what it's supposed to feel like. And if you're in a seamstress, you got to know what the actions of it are when you pull it, when you tear it, when you cut it. When you become familiar with that, then you'll know. Like I started getting suspicious about some of the cotton sheets that I got at garage sales that I was using for covers for my dehydrating racks. Ugh, I got to point the right way, right here. My Kasoris right here. I like to use 100% natural thin fabric that breathes well on the trays when I'm dehydrating things like herbs or even zucchini or sliced apples, things that I won't have to worry about it sticking or being liquidy like, my tomatoes or my eggs or milk, because it'll dry faster and holds everything in. Well, as I was messing around with some of these one day, I'm like, well, I think this is cotton, but I don't think this is 100% cotton. I'm just becoming more and more familiar with how things tear and how they thread because I never did hem the edges of those. So I'm like, I think I'm going to have to start over because now I don't know. I can't feel entirely positive what I have in here is cotton, and I don't want to be drying my food on plastic. So I did buy some natural linen that, doesn't have dye added to it. And I've been making myself some covers for my racks. And I'm going to start using that real soon. And I'm really excited because linen breathes better than cotton anyway. And so it should dry even faster. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, just getting to the point where you can't really trust anything anymore. And, but regardless, we got to do the best we can. But yeah, so the ramen thing, a couple of different people pointed that out. And I'm like, oh, so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing when I make those stupid mistakes and I forget to read. So what did it say? Yes, the azure jars are made in China. I did look about that. But again, if you're getting if they're the ones that they have the Superb brand lids, those are made in the US. And I like those lids. They're good lids. They had sent me a bunch of them for free to try out, and I've been happy with them. Let's see. You have to be aware of trying to catch up here, people. I know I'm going to be missing. It's hard for me to kind of keep up on all that. I'm going to scroll up a little bit, see if I missed any maybe important questions, comments? Yeah, real science. And a lot of people assume that the NIH doesn't have some real good, solid science. They do. It's just that it's not publicized. The stuff that proves things like dandelion leaves help with certain viruses that we've been having to deal with for the 2020. It's there. You can find the science. It's just you're not going to see it publicized. And you just have to know how to look. And it can be hard sometimes to find the information you're looking for, but like looking up health benefits of things like lavender and gosh, a great amount of herbs. I was surprised at how much I found in there that backed up the same facts that were being quoted by certain natural remedy type sites. And it can be found. So don't throw the baby out with bathwater. I'm not saying everything that's on the NIH is trustworthy, but if you can find sites that all back each other up and agree, you got the science agreeing, you got the medical agreeing, you've got the natural, it's all in agreement. I think you're doing pretty good. That's why I don't trust just one site. Some people assume I trust only the government. No, no. Some people think I only trust some chiropractic doctor. No. Uh, it's about trying to vet everything. And I say that all the time, and then I make a stupid mistake like saying that the ramen was made in US. But I make mistakes too, because I'm human, unfortunately. So what else? Let me look again real quick. I had a couple, at least one more question I wanted to approach. Estate sales are great. Yes. I haven't had a chance to go. We used to go garage sailing, estate sailing like every summer, all the time. I haven't been able to do that in a long time. It's just things have been too crazy. I'm hoping to get back into it again. But yes, you can find a lot of great fabrics, sheets. If they have the tags on it, it would be helpful because then you could, because I did go through when I was going through all these fabrics or organizing my room over here. I still had some sheets I'd bought at garage sales. I'm like, I better double check and see if these still have tags. And if they do, this one 100% cotton, this one 100% cotton, this is a poly cotton blend, out it goes. Yeah, that was how I was able to downsize all the excess fabric I have in there, was just getting rid of all the garbage and saving all the stuff that was, cotton, linen, all my flannels are 100% cotton, because I have a lot of flannel fabric back there too. So, and I realized I did that. I did do that tour, that video tour of that room. It'll publish in a couple weeks. It's not a pretty room, but I'm like, as I'm editing the video, I realized I didn't explain what everything is. So when that video comes out, don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm still in the process of organizing because I got to go through all these cabinets because a lot of my soap making supplies are in here and I want to get them all moved into this craft room and out of these cabinets here. So that's going to be the next thing I tackle, are these cabinets. And that way I can have everything in one place. But anyway, when that video comes out, don't be afraid to ask, well, what was that thing over there? What do you got up there? Yeah, because there's just a bunch of, it's not just crafts. It's just kind of, other stuff. Because one thing I forgot is this above this big, this one main shelf for my fabrics that's kind of makes its own little wall. There's a bunch of stuff on top I don't think you even see in the video, but that's all martial arts supplies that I don't want to get rid of because you just never know. I don't know that I'll ever start teaching again, but I want to have all those mitts and pads and things so that I can start working with my grandbabies at some point and teaching them, especially Rowan, because she's a little girl and she's tiny, tiny, tiny. She's about almost a year and a half right now. And she's probably about the size of a 9-month-old. She's very tiny, but she's mighty. She's mighty. She is a force to be reckoned with. Let me tell you, that one's got a temper like her grandma. Poor thing. So what else? See, thank you, Heidi. We did your elderberry spice syrup after my daughter got sick at 4 months old with RSV. ... Sometimes I'm still afraid to say some of the stuff out loud. She was in the PICU for a week, but with the elderberry spice syrup, she didn't even need an inhaler anymore. That is wonderful, Jesse. Thank you for sharing that. That always, that always makes my day when people, I mean, I get excited when people share their own little remedies that they came up with and how it helped with this, that, and the other thing. But it's even more exciting when somebody used my own recipe or ideas and it worked for them. Because I'll be honest, sometimes when I make stuff and it works for me and I share it, I'm like, what if it's only me it works for? What if somebody tries it? A whole bunch of people try this and they make it and they find it doesn't work for them, because not everything's going to work for everyone. That's just the way it is. We're all different. We're all created a little bit unique. That's the way it should be. But so it just warms my heart when I know that something actually worked well for someone. So, yeah, I still have yet to try wild lettuce tincture. I haven't made one. I have some that grows wild around here, and I just haven't even bothered. I have tried chewing on a leaf when I had a headache, and I find it wasn't as effective as the feverfew, especially when I take like a feverfew leaf and a valerian leaf and or a catmint leaf, and I have a headache. As long as it's growing fresh, obviously. I don't bother with tinctures if it's growing fresh. I'll just go chew on it, no matter how nasty it tastes. And that works really good for me. So, yeah, anyway, I'm hoping I'm not missing any good questions. Hi. That's Patrick. Hi, Tessie. Yeah, I'm glad you stopped by, Tessie. It's good to see you. So, okay. What else was it? Somebody starting seeds. Now, I did just shoot a video on this too, but so that again, in a couple of weeks, I'm not as far ahead as I once used to be because of all the stuff going on. I'm only about 2 weeks ahead. So, but at least I'm still ahead. But anyway, I did shoot a separate video on this, but I want to go ahead and say this real quickly, is that whenever I start seeds, I don't know, do I say it in tomorrow's video? Because I got my this and that coming out tomorrow. I don't know. I'll go ahead and say it anyway. But what I do is that works most of the time for me when it comes, especially for herbs or other types of things that are kind of hard to grow, especially when you're not familiar with how it might grow for you. I always don't direct seed not even to pots outside. I always recommend, at least this is what works for me, to start your seeds inside in the early spring or late winter in pots, just like you would do with tomatoes or peppers in either a sunny window or with grow lights. I personally never use grow lights. I never have. I just rely on, even in our area what doesn't get a whole lot of sun, I can still get enough natural light coming in the south facing window that my plants do just fine. And a lot of times that works really well for me to start them in there. And then when the weather gets warm enough, I either move them out to the greenhouse, let them grow a little bit bigger in there, or just move them outside where they can stay somewhat protected from all the great amount of rain we get in spring and some of the colder weather until they get big enough to where I can transplant into a bigger location. And that's how I finally was able to get marshmallow to grow and work for me. And now it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. I've got it coming up in pots in my front deck. I got it coming up all over in my backyard garden. It's everywhere. But it took a few years to get it acclimated and to get it to where I could actually get it to grow. And mullein was another one I struggled with, but even those tricks didn't work with the mullein. What I then needed was that plus getting seeds that were already acclimated to this climate, where mullein tends to like much drier climates than here, where we get a low average rainfall of 120 inches a year. I know some people don't, if you don't know what your average annual rainfall is, that might not sound like anything to you, but I'll tell you this, people know it's wet and rainy in Seattle. We get 3 times that amount of rain. I lived in Seattle for a couple of years before I came here. So I started out in Wenatchee, right in the middle of Washington, where we have hot, dry summers, 10 inches annual rainfall, Then I moved to Seattle. I'm like, wow, it rains a lot here. Well, not really Seattle. It was Kirkland. I was going to college there. And everybody there has an umbrella. Okay, no big deal. Then I end up in this little tiny town. I didn't know what rain was. And I'm walking, first time I'm walking outside in the rain, and I've got this bright yellow umbrella, and people are giving me the weirdest looks. And then I realized nobody here uses an umbrella. See, in Wenatchee, nobody had an umbrella because it never rained. Seattle, everybody had an umbrella because it rains. Here in Forks, nobody has an umbrella because it rains all the time. It's pointless. It's pointless to have an umbrella. You're just going to get wet. You just get over it. It's just the way it is. You're going to get wet. And if you have curly hair like mine, you got to be careful. Usually it's the humidity that gets us worse than the rain. So, good news, made one of your skirts and took a blue ribbon for it. Oh, wow, Carol. Excellent. That's great. How exciting. Yeah. You have to help unload the truck. Oh, I don't know about that with Azure Standard because I don't do drop points. I just have it delivered directly, which is another question I need to tackle. So a couple things is people say, have you ever thought about, they'll ask me this over and over, setting up a drop point? Yes, I've tried a couple times. The problem is when you live in the twilight zone, it's so remote that even the Azure Standard truck doesn't want to come here. They don't want to come here. They don't even want to bother with the drop point. It's remote. But, the Twilighters don't mind coming here from all over the place. I mean, all over the place. And I don't understand the excitement, but it's just a small little tiny podunk ex-logging town. So anyway, and there's no vampires and werewolves here, just in case anybody was wondering that one. And even if there were, I'm pretty sure that the vampires would not sparkle. Silly, dumb silliness. Okay, so anyway, what was I saying? Oh, the Azure Standard thing. Okay, so I've shared this before too, but in case you've never heard me share this, one thing people, if you don't have a drop point, the drop point will help save you some in shipping, and that's a nice thing. But I don't know how all those work because I've never dealt with one. Now my friend does. Sometimes she'll order and she'll drive into town. I just don't have that kind of time to do that, and it's just not worth it to me because every single day, I've got something going on. Well, except for Saturday. That's my one day. That's my one day that I don't have to do anything. I don't want to do anything. And I'm being obedient on that. And I tell you what, it's helped me so much. But every other day, I've got something going on. It's either grandbabies or shooting and editing videos, or it's straightening out my craft room, or it's something. There's always something. I don't have time for that. So to me, it's worth it to order the products, have them delivered here, and pay shipping. And if you're ordering big bags, like 25-pound bags, 50-pound bags, expect it's going to cost money. Shipping is expensive. And I think part of the problem is we're so used to ordering from places like Amazon that claims to give you free shipping. Well, here's the funny thing. You can sometimes find that same product, that same exact product from a different seller without free shipping, and it'll be a lot cheaper, but then by the time you add the shipping on, it comes to about the same price as the product that claims to have free shipping. So when you understand that, and then you go back and you start adding up, so we're talking good quality organic grains, non-GMO. And I was buying some grains from Amazon for a while. And then I started getting a little more from Azure Standard. I'm like, man, the shipping, if I'm wanting to order several 50-pound bags of grains, shipping could be $200. And it's like, dang, that's a lot. Well, again, free shipping. So let's look at, but this price is so much cheaper than this grain over here that I get free shipping on. So let me do the math. So I take all that, let's say I got 2 or 3, 4 bags of some, 50-pound bags of grains of some kind. And I take all that, I add the shipping in with the cost of the grains, and then I break it all up by pounds. And what is the price per pound that I'm paying for this? Now, take that price per pound and compare it to the price per pound of this one over here with the free shipping. In most cases, I find that the Azure standard is cheaper. That even with the added shipping, it still comes out to be less, and I know I'm getting a better quality grain. And so it's all about marketing. Free shipping in a lot of times is not actually free at all. Sometimes maybe yes, but in most cases not. It's basically just another scam. So, I mean, I couldn't ship out my products for free. I would go broke if, people were buying chambers, especially the half-gallon chambers, and then expecting free shipping on that. The only way I could do that is to mark the cost of the product up and then say it's free shipping, which Etsy would encourage you to do when I used to sell through them. And I always hated that because I felt like it was false advertisement, but they encourage you to do that because they claim, oh, you'll get more sales. And finally, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I went back to just putting, okay, here's the price of the product. Here's the cost of shipping. And I did just as good selling it that way than I did doing the free shipping. Like they kept, they kind of push you. It was another one of the things I hated about Etsy. That, and then they kept raising the cost of listing fees and making things more and more difficult, and then forcing you to pay for ads you never wanted. They don't even warn you. They just start advertising for you on Facebook, Instagram, wherever else, and then charge you for it. And you can't back out of it. I thought that was just scandalous. How can they get away with that? So that and several other reasons I've been done with them for a while. So no, I do not sell on Etsy anymore. And no, I will not start another store anywhere else. I now do everything through email. People email me, raincountrymomestead@gmail.com. I shoot them out a product list. I just send the whole product list no matter what they're asking for, because that's easy, because it has the instructions on how to order, the 3 payment methods that I have. I only have 3 to choose from, and all that. So I just shoot them out the whole thing, and you can find what you're looking for in there if we're still selling it. So, okay, let's see if I got any other questions. Yeah, shipping is crazy, and it's constantly going up. I'm constantly getting notifications from USPS. Oh, shipping's gone up on this, that, the other thing. Great. Great. Because we're already, being taxed to death as it is on everything else, and let's just raise the cost of everything else too. So, yeah. Was there another question? I covered the seed, covered the one on the shelf stable foods. How long is the shelf life? Well, if they're supposed to be shelf stable, the shelf life should last for years if stored properly. Same thing goes with canned goods. Home canned goods, people think, oh, this is only going to last for a year or 2. No, it should last forever. As long as your seal holds, they should last forever. That, I think it's one of those things, again, we're just kind of taught to be afraid of stuff. But I've opened up jars of food, meat, vegetables, whatever, that were 4 or 5 years old, and they're still good. Still as tasty as the day I packed it up and canned it. Sometimes you might see a fading in color, especially if you've got too much light hitting your foods. That's why you try to keep it in a dark place, because if the color's fading, very likely you're losing some of your nutrients. But there's certain nutrients you will never lose, no matter how you put it up. You're never going to lose your protein. You're never going to lose your carbohydrates. You're never going to lose your fiber. You're never going to lose your minerals. These things just don't disappear. They're always going to be in there. And despite all the claims that freeze drying makes, when you actually look into the science and read all of the things about it, you're not really saving that much more nutrients in freeze drying something than you are dehydrating. It's minuscule. What you're saving, that's the thing, is they don't really tell you what it is you're saving in the actual percentage. So what they're measuring are the 2 main things that are most likely to be destroyed by heat and light, and that's vitamin C and vitamin A. So that means if you were freeze drying something because you're trying to preserve your vitamin C and A, that's only going to be good for you. That's only going to hold as long as you're storing it in a dark place that doesn't get any heat and you're not cooking it before you eat it. That means you got to pull it out, that you just soak it in cold water or you pull it straight out of the jar and eat it. And then maybe you're still getting your vitamins A and C. If you're going to cook that freeze-dried food, it's going to be no different than dehydrated or even canned for that matter, for the most part. So yeah, I mean, it's just some people just really like freeze-dried food, and I have nothing against that. I mean, please, if that is your thing, because I will say, especially with certain types of foods, it will rehydrate much faster than certain dehydrated foods will. And, which would make it more convenient. Some people like the flavor better. Totally get that. But don't go buy a freeze dryer because you've been made to believe you're saving, a crap load more nutrients when you're not. It's not the actual facts. So just like what I was talking about earlier with the fabrics and the ramen and whatever, the things that are claimed to be made in the US and they're not, or whatever it is. You got to know all the facts, because people are going to tell you, it might be based in truth, but they're only going to tell you enough to make you believe it's a lot better than it really is, because they're trying to sell a product. And that's why I did the research, because I started really thinking about getting a freeze dryer. I really was thinking about it. We could go out and, take some of the money we saved and buy one. But then when I really started researching it, I thought, you know what? It's not worth it to me. And, I took time to taste different freeze-dried foods and found there's very few of them I liked. And that's the other thing. So, like, I love freeze-dried organic non-GMO sweet corn. Just as a snack, it's so good. And certain fruits, but that's about it. Most freeze-dried vegetables I do not like. I'd rather have them dehydrated or canned. So, or even frozen. So it's just a matter of taste. There's nothing wrong with it. You got to do what's best for you. I just don't want to see people sold a bag of goods because they're made to believe this when it's just simply not true. So that's why I always say try something first, even when it comes to dehydrating and canning. Don't put up, Heidi said that, dehydrated zucchini or dehydrated eggs raw are super, super good. And I'm going to put up, 2 gallons of dehydrated eggs or 2 gallons of dehydrated zucchini and find that you hate it. That it's just not working for you. That you don't want to do that. You want to sample things first. Just like I did with the avocado that time. I thought, I'm going to see what happens if I try to dehydrate a little tiny slice of avocado. And I didn't think it would actually dehydrate. Dehydrated beautifully. It powdered up beautifully. That one amazed me. Tastes terrible. Tasted awful. And I know it was good avocado because I ate the rest of that avocado fresh. So I'm glad I didn't dehydrate up the whole thing. Always test it a little bit first. Don't just trust it because I said it or anyone else says it. You might find out you really hate it. Some people hate canned carrots. Some people might prefer canned green beans over frozen green beans or dehydrated green beans, which, by the way, I found I don't like dehydrated green beans near as much as canned. So it's all going to depend on the food too. So just nobody get mad. Just do what's best for you. And I'm just going to share my opinion based on what I've learned and what I've studied and what I've experimented with. So that's it. It's just opinion. And I say that because some people get really mad about the freeze dryer thing, and there's no need for it, because I'm not, I've had people accuse me of hating on the freeze drying community. I don't. I absolutely do not. I think it's great that these things are available to people now. I remember years and years ago, you couldn't get freeze dryers. And, but yeah, just make sure you do all your research and know before you pay that kind of money for something. I mean, just like, somebody told me about the Kosori, and I thought, well, I need to get another backup dehydrator anyway. I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. I love it. But that doesn't mean that someone's going to like the Kosori better than the Excalibur or better than the Nesco, because they all have their different benefits, their different, pros and cons. And so it's all going to be up to the person. Having an Excalibur doesn't make you a master dehydrator. It means you have an Excalibur and you like it and it works good for you. And you may like it better than a Nesco. Somebody else may like the Nesco because you have the stackable trays that you can add and take away from. I like that feature for some things, definitely. And then some people are going to like the Cosori better. It's all a matter of choice. And I liked this one enough that I decided to get a second one and stack it on top. And that way I'm not taking up any more room in here, even though I got this big long counter. See this counter, you see me standing, what was it? You see me stand in this corner a lot when I'm shooting videos, standing right there. But this counter, so these cabinets down here, by the way, these were the old lower cabinets from the kitchen that years ago Patrick refinished and set them up in here after I stopped teaching dance and martial arts. And then he made this oak countertop from scratch out of the, he had to redeck his equipment trailer and it had all oak on it, but there was parts that were rotten out and stuff. So he took all that and he built that countertop. It took him a long time and it's one solid piece. That thing was heavy. It took him and my two boys coming in here and lifting that piece up there, but it's beautiful. I love it. So when we do dinners in here, because we have a lot more room in here than the actual quote unquote dining room in the other room, this is great because that just becomes our little buffet right there. I can't, this is confusing me. Right back there, we just line the food up there, put the drinks on the little L piece coming out here, and it works out great. People just serve themselves and we just have a great time in here. Play games, play pool. They actually played ping pong last night and played a little rock band over on this side. And then there's the foosball table. It's great. I love being able to, that we've been able to repurpose this room. But yeah, he also used some of that same oak to build a new cabinet, lower cabinet in my other bathroom here. And he's got a video on that too. It turned out beautiful. I love it. It's so great. So anyway, I'm rambling now about stuff I hadn't planned on talking about. Could you do videos on how to harvest herbs in season to encourage growth and how to clean up herbs to prep? I actually have quite a few videos on that I've done over the years. So remember, I've been doing videos on YouTube for 8 years, over 8 years, because I started August of 2016. And I've got all kinds of videos on herbs. Some of them are, on specific herbs. And a lot of times I'll show how I harvest them, whether or not I wash them, which most of the time I don't. If I feel like they're might have a little dust from whatever, I might rinse them off. Most of the time I don't. And what was that? What else? Yeah, sometimes I show how I harvest them in season. Yeah, it depends on the herb. I have quite a few videos out there. If you want to look at in my gardening videos, I have them broken up by year. I have garden 20. I think I have one for each year, but I do have, playlists for each year, at least starting, even though I was doing gardening videos in 2016, I know there was somewhere in there I realized I'm going to have to start breaking these up by year because something, adding new things, doing some things a little bit differently. And so you can go through there, or you can go to my Herbs and More playlist. It's called Herbs and More Benefits and Uses, and just scroll through there and see if you can find any herb that I might have spoken of. If it's one that I already grow, a lot of times I might talk about how I harvest it and put it up. But most of the time I'm using them, I'm dehydrating them and putting them up in vacuum sealed jars. And just so you know, herbs for the most part don't really, if they dry so well, they don't really need to be vacuum sealed. I've had a jar of oregano that was vacuum sealed and a jar of oregano that wasn't vacuum sealed. And I think the one that wasn't vacuum sealed was even a year older than the one that was. And so I took each one. I think the one that wasn't vacuum sealed had come unsealed. And I tasted them side by side, no difference. The color was the same. Everything about them was good. I just like to vacuum seal them just to help make sure I'm preserving as much of the flavor and all that as possible. But some things it's really not necessary to vacuum seal, but anything with high fat in it, yes. Anything that dries up crisp, whether it be like you're freeze drying it or you're doing like the meat, like I was talking about, you should vacuum seal it if you want it to stay crisp, or they're going to get soft and stale. So it's a lot of it just depends. I just try to play it safe and vacuum seal everything. It doesn't hurt me to do that. So it's just a little extra work. So anyway, let's see. I must be talking about canners. Yeah, I have an All-American canner because people were convincing me, oh, before I got my first canner, you should get an All-American. They're the best. And I love it, but it's the only canner I know. So I can't say anything else. I know that people have been canning with Prestos and other types of canners for many, many years. So you got, and don't forget, you can find canners, dehydrators, and all kinds of great stuff at garage sales. And so even though I bought that big canner, it's the second biggest size. The biggest one's it's massive. It's big around, but this one is probably about this big around, but you can double stack quart jars. And I bought that one brand new, but several years ago, I don't know if it was 2020 or something, we found 2 like new All-American canners down the road. And she was only wanting $5 a piece for them. I think one looked like it might have been used once or twice. The other one looked like it had never been used. And they were smaller. One was probably about this big. And the other one was a little bit bigger. I gave the bigger one to my daughter-in-law because I know she's wanting to get into pressure canning at some point. And then I kept the smallest one for myself, which has been nice for if I just want to do a small batch of something and I want to try it and I don't know if I'm going to like it. Like when I tried canning zucchini, I wanted to just try a little bit. I didn't want to heat up that big old massive canner, and I didn't have anything else at that moment that I wanted to can. And I just wanted to try it. And I'm glad I did that. And I'm glad I had that little canner that we ended up paying $10 a piece for, because I'm like, let's pay twice as much because they're worth even more than that. But just to be nice, because I felt like maybe they just didn't really know what they had. So please teach us how to make linen undergarments. I haven't got that far yet because it's hard to find a stretchy linen. So I really want to. I do have tops that I make. I have a video on, for the upper part that I make out of 100% cotton, except for the band at the bottom to help. In that video, I didn't show putting the band on, but I did find it best to go back and put a band. It's a stretchy, it's the one thing I wear that has, it's cotton, but it's like a cotton lycra. It's mostly cotton, but has a little lycra in it to give it a good stretch and a good hold. And that's the only thing I wear that has that in it. What I would like to do is see if I can find a good stretchy fabric that is like a 4-way stretch so I can create a good band out of that. I don't even have to use that. But I do have a video on that. It's old. It's quite a few years old, but they're so comfortable. I love them, but I just can't wear any other kind. So anyway, I have that anyway. But linen, yeah, finding stretchy linen is tricky. There is some out there that's like a linen jersey knit, but I think it's only a 2-way stretch. So it's only going to go this way. And when you're talking about undergarments, you really want a 4-way stretch. Will stretch this way and this way. And that's going to be the most comfortable. If you're only getting a 2-way stretch, it's not going to be that comfortable. So I do now make all of my knickers out of linen, and I love them. I could never go back to anything else to wear under my skirts. So in fact, yesterday I was wearing my green linen skirt with the green linen knickers underneath. And I do talk about those and show them a little bit in that linen video coming out. That I still got to go in there and edit. Knickers, bloomers, I don't know. They go down to my ankles. So, and I tell you what, wearing the all linen, it was a hot day. The last couple of days were just unseasonably hot for here. And now it's gone back to being cool, which is kind of nice, but it was hot. And let me tell you, wearing the linen skirt with the linen knickers underneath, I stayed nice and cool. And in fact, I stayed cooler on the areas I was wearing more layers than on the areas like just wearing, like I'll take my t-shirts and I'll cut them into tank tops and then take the sleeve and then tie that. And that way I can stay a little bit cooler. So, you know, yeah, my bottom part, where the skirt and the knickers are stays cooler. You got to remember, if you're getting direct sun on your skin, it's going to get hotter than wearing something that's light and airy that's going to prevent you from getting that direct sun. That's going to actually keep you cooler as long as it's light and airy. And linen is great because it's got the best breathability, and it is great for keeping you cool. That's the one thing I found that I'm so in love with that. Especially when, you're 58 years old, you're still having hot flashes. You'll find that linen is for linen sheets, linen, whatever. I have made myself some linen pajamas and a linen top. I'm going to make another linen top, just a basic kind of shell type top. And yeah. But yes, I'm still hoping I can figure out a way to get a stretchy linen, a 4-way stretch. I don't know if there's any out there. I've tried looking. I'll keep trying. And even some of the stuff I found, the 2-way stretch, it's not even just that it's not 4-way stretch. It's really, really thin. It's like really thin. It's like, it's sheer. Like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting quiet because I'm looking at that. But yeah, linen has been proven. It used to be used for pajamas yeah, that too. It used to be used for bandages and for sheets in hospitals because of its healing properties and its antibacterial properties, and it does speed up healing. And this was proven in the science that I was telling you about in that article. They lay it all out in those articles. They can be long and dry and boring, but you can go in there and you can see how they conducted their tests. And I appreciate that, even though I don't understand it all. I appreciate that they lay that out for people who can understand that. But then usually what I do, go down and you can read the conclusion that all these studies, what they came up with in their conclusion after doing all these studies. And that's usually what I look for. It's easier and faster to go do that part. Let's see. Oh, and somebody coming back to Azure Standard. I'm on here longer than I meant to be. Wow, I've already been on here an hour. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stay that long. The Azure, somebody was asking me about how I get the Azure credit. Well, just know that anyone, if you set up an Azure Standard account, anyone can set up their own link, and you can get a $25 credit if somebody orders through your link. However, that credit, you won't get it unless they order at least $100 worth of stuff. So I've had a lot of people order through my link. I can see 10 different people that have ordered through the link, but they didn't order $100, so I didn't earn anything from that. And then there's one person that ordered at least 100. It doesn't show me how much they ordered. It just shows whether or not I got a credit. So I can tell whether or not they ordered at least $100 or less than $100. And so, but I'm still happy to see those come in because I really appreciate Azure. I can't speak. I really appreciate Azure Standard, and I want to support them. And one of the nice things is they did recently come up with an affiliate program that doesn't work like any other. So I don't get a percentage of any order. I don't. But what I do get is I get a monthly credit to my account of $30 just by staying active. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I didn't even know I was going to get that. I had no idea. I just been promoting them because I appreciate them. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? I have a $30 credit in my account? That's pretty cool. I figured it was a one-time thing, but okay, cool. And then the next month I got another one. I'm like, huh? That's pretty cool. So, so that does help. That helps. That helps make up for, I usually try to do an Azure Standard order like once a month, and that does definitely help go towards shipping costs. So when I get someone who orders $100 worth of product or more, or, just getting that monthly affiliate, that really does, it helps towards shipping at least. So I do Really appreciate that. So Tessie said you can make them with glycerin. I think you're probably talking about tinctures. Okay, yep, here we go. I have a question. Are herb tinctures worth doing? I don't know about making them because you use strong alcohol. I don't always use strong alcohol. Sometimes I do. But that's a misconception that people assume that all tinctures have to be made with strong alcohol. In fact, I don't do that very often. I've only done it more lately because I realized I still had tequila left over from my youngest son's wedding that I didn't buy, and I didn't bring it over here. It just ended up over here because it was a carryover reception. So, when they were done at the other place, they had to get cleaned up. I was like, well, can we come over to your house? Oh, fine. Because I got this big room. So I didn't know all that stuff was going to come here and they got left here. And so that's the only reason I've been using that is to use it up, to get it out of here. Mostly what I use is homemade wine. Sometimes just that. Sometimes I use, it doesn't have to be homemade, but I know what's in it. I don't trust store-bought wine at all. And it's cheap because I make it myself out of my own grapes or apples or blackberries or rhubarb. Or I might mix it with honey. Or if you want absolutely no alcohol at all, do an oxymel. It's a blend of raw honey and vinegar. And in that case, again, homemade vinegar. So you know exactly what's in it. You know exactly what it's made out of. And you can make your medicinal extracts out of that. I do it all the time. And glycerin is an option too, but you do have to mix it with water because it is too syrupy and it's not going to extract well. So when you're using glycerin, you got to do 3 parts glycerin to 1 part water. So that's another completely alcohol-free way you can do it, especially if you're looking at giving it to children a year old or younger and you're concerned about giving them raw honey. And that would be probably the safest way to go. And then, yes, the age is 1 year and up for raw honey. Some people think it's 2 years. Some people say it's 18 months. Some people say it's 6 years. It's a year and up. And there's people that there's certain places that give their babies raw honey at younger than that, and they're fine. So, do what you think is best for the safety of your children and your grandchildren. For me, I would just to play it on the safe side, I would go ahead if they're a year old, if they're under a year, I would go ahead and go with something like, you could even make an extract out of just plain vinegar. They're not going to like the taste of it. I'll tell you that for sure. Or you can use the glycerin and water, which is sweet. Glycerin is very sweet. So that they would be more apt to take. I always let all of my extracts sit a minimum of 2 months. And I don't even bother straining them until I'm ready for them. They'll be fine. So, let's see, do you ever get tired of being thrifty? Some days I just want to splurge. Well, yeah, we all have our moments. So, and I've been splurging like on the linen fabric, but I still end up using it to make my own stuff. Oh, I made some new linen napkins out of all the, out of the excess pieces that were too small to do anything else with. More linen napkins. I love them. I love them. But linen is expensive. So to me, that's a splurge. No, I don't put the tinctures without alcohol in the refrigerator. You can if you want, but I don't. I have all kinds of extracts made with that I've made with just glycerin and water, and I didn't. And now they'll say, oh, they're only going to last for 4 months. It's like, well, how long is that really going to be then if I got to let it extract for 2 months? Does that mean I only get 2 months worth? I've had them for longer than that, and they're just fine. The glycerin is going to be a natural preservative. Honey is a natural preservative. Vinegar is a natural preservative. So is wine. So I don't worry about it. But if you feel safer keeping them in the fridge, then you can do that. I keep my elderberry syrup in the fridge because it's not 100% honey, because it's basically the tea. Then I add the raw honey, but it stayed in there I've had elderberry syrup in there for 4 years and it was still good. It never molded, but I did keep it in the fridge just to be on the safe side. So do I have a video on using oxymel for tinctures? Yes, I have I have a video called How to Make Extracts Without Alcohol. There's 2 of them. You want to look for the most recent one. And it's the one where I was making a mullein extract using half and half honey and vinegar. Oh, I'm going to probably pronounce your name wrong. Diametra. I hope I'm saying that right. And I'm sorry. I did get your preparedness testimonial. Thank you for that. I haven't read through it. I kind of like to try to do more of a live reading so you can get a little bit of a reaction. To me, that's more fun. So sometimes I'll kind of skim through just to see how long it is and all that so I can decide which ones I'm going to read. But yes, thank you for that. So anyone else wants to send a preparedness testimony, raincountryhomestead@gmail.com, type it out so that I can copy and paste it into my own document that I then will read. So it's a series I have going on, preparedness testimonies, and then I have the natural remedy testimonies. And the preparedness ones are about, either how you got there frugally, got to a better place, how you did it without having to spend much money, and or how being more prepared got you through maybe some difficult times. It doesn't even have to be really hard times or, any major catastrophe, but how you were like, wow, I'm really glad I had this stuff on hand. Just, I don't know how many times you've had family over and it's like, oh, I could use, I forgot about this, that, or I forgot to have something to drink, or, oh, I've got some juice back here, or I've got this, or I've got that. It wasn't a major catastrophe. We could have run to the store, but you know what? We didn't have to. It was convenient, and I love that. So what else do we got? What else? Rosemary and jojoba just started. Let's see. Yeah. Just because people use vodka or whatever doesn't mean that they drink or that you have to drink, because you don't, when it comes to using higher proof alcohols like that to make a tincture, you only need a tiny bit. Some people just maybe in a few drops. Some people might need a teaspoon tops. Typically when you're talking about things like oxymills or the ones made with wine or vinegar, you might need a little bit more. That's the main difference. But I usually pack a lot of herbs or whatever into that to make it as strong as possible when I'm doing that. Of course, you don't get as much in there, because once you strain it all out, you try to squeeze all that goodness out of there. It's like, oh, wow, I had this whole quart jar. Now I've only got maybe, about a pint of tincture left, or if that, quarter pint. Let's see what else here. I'm sorry. I hate it when, people, live shows and they stop and they're reading and then it's like, you're like, okay, this is boring. I'm sitting here staring at her as she's staring at her screen. Oh, quick question. Comfrey ginger root. Can you talk about them? Can ginger be drank in tea 3 to 5 times a day? I would assume so, but it's going to depend on the person. Comfrey is also going to be very dependent on the person and how much, especially if you're talking the root. The root is going to be a lot more powerful. You got to be a little bit more careful. I personally have never used the root. I've only used the leaves. But I do have videos out on ginger in that playlist I was talking about earlier. Herbs and More, Benefits and Uses. I have a video on the benefits and uses of ginger. I have a video on the benefits and uses of comfrey. Now, back then when I did the comfrey video, I don't think I'd started using it in a tea. I was mostly just using it topically. And since then, I do use it in tea, fresh. And I actually kind of like the flavor, but I usually like to mix it with something, like throw a couple of comfrey leaves in with some peppermint or whatever it is I'm making. I personally have never done the root. Let's see. Tessie, some people do that. And maybe again, I've never bothered. We just take it. So yeah, see, Teresa, I don't drink, but use vodka for tinctures. Same here. I'll use whatever I have on hand. My personal favorite for flavor is spiced rum. It's great for vanilla extract, but that's going to be more expensive. I mean, vodka typically people can get a lot cheaper than certain other alcohols. So even certain whiskeys, bourbon, whatever, you can use just whatever. Some people kind of make you think that it has to be vodka or it has to be, Everclear, which I personally never use and never will. But that's just my personal preference. I know some herbalists believe that Everclear can actually, because it is so strong, it can damage certain herbs. I'm sure it's fine for certain other things, especially roots. Dandelion root or ginger root or whatever it is probably going to be less damaging, but more delicate herbs it could be. That's just what I've heard. I have not done the research on that, and I'd just rather not use it anyway. So I stick to 80 proof or under when it comes to anything like that. So, sorry, here I am reading comments again. Last time I didn't read enough comments, but I am going to have to get going here pretty soon. I made an oregano oil and had it in the oven with the light on to keep it warm. My granddaughter turned the oven on to 350 for about 20 minutes before I caught it. I guess it's going to depend on the oil. It might be okay, but if you used olive oil, it could possibly go rancid. But you know by the smell and the taste. That's why with certain oils, you have to be careful about the heat. So sometimes it's about the herb and damaging the benefits, but it's sometimes depending on the oil. Olive oil is one of those that can go rancid pretty quickly. 350 isn't that hot, but yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you for certain on that. I would suggest tasting it and smelling it. And if you're familiar with that smell and that taste of rancid nuts or rancid oils, you'll know. I've had olive oil go rancid on me before. I would like to know if you would do a video on what can be done with plants, etc., that fail to perform the way we want. We can eat so many leaves and also use the flowers for food and medicine. I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but yeah. See. Can you suggest an herbal remedy for my cat's chronic I'm sorry, I can't. I know very little about it's not something I've researched. I'm sure maybe somebody in here who has cats that has had to deal with that. That would be something I'd have to look up myself. Now, remember, people, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a veterinarian, all I know is only from my own studies, my own experience, and my own experiments. And we don't have cats, so I have never had need to look up anything specific for cats. And my dog's pretty healthy. He hardly ever has anything wrong. And I've rarely had to look anything up for him. So I can only go by my own experience. And so because of that, though, several years ago, I put out a video on how to do your own research, because I know sometimes that's the challenging part. How do you research this stuff? How do you find this information? And it can be done. It's not that it's hard. It's that you have to know how to do your word searches and know all the places to look for information. Because if you just rely on one source, you're not going to get all the information. I've had to correct myself numerous times just in the past 8 years of having videos out, because I read over here that you couldn't eat calendula leaves, that they were toxic. Then years later, I find out, well, that was absolutely not true. But I read it in one place of somebody who maybe got their information from somebody else who was wrong. And so that's why you've got to cross compare everything. And what gets frustrating is when you're getting half of the sites are saying this and the other half of the sites are saying that. It's like, well, which is it? And then at that point, sometimes you just got to experiment with tiny, tiny amounts and find out. I mean, I thought, okay, I'm going to go try eating a little bit of calendula leaf and see what happens. Kind of spicy, kind of interesting flavor. Nothing happened. But yeah, I had somebody share with me that they cook with calendula leaves all the time. So, it's just a matter of being able to look this stuff up. I make my own skin cream, and I use calendula, I use comfrey, I use a whole bunch of herbs in mine. That skin cream gets used on my face every single day. I use it on my hands if I need it. I use it as a lip balm. I use it on my feet. It's great. I love it. I have a recipe on it. I sell it, but I also have video recipes or 2 different videos. The first one, the old one, ignore that one. Go to the newest one because that one was a little more difficult. It's the same ingredients, but I realized I was making more work for myself in the first one. So the second one I know it's got a pink thumbnail. And that's the one where I was making the rose, geranium, vanilla. That's the essential oils, but I still have the infused oil I use in there I have rose petals, calendula, comfrey, plantain, red clover. Nowadays, I'm also adding the camellia flowers, whatever, just whatever herbs that I grow, honeysuckle, that are good for skin. So yeah, you can make it out of one of those. You can make it out of all of those. So, and then I have videos on just the infused oil itself and the different options of herbs you can use. So you can just look these up on my channel. And if you don't know how to look up videos on people's channels, if you go to the top, there's a search bar at the top on YouTube, and you can put in your search criteria and then put the channel name. Or if you go directly to that person's channel and you'll see the little tabs, we'll see videos, playlists, posts. And if you keep going over far enough, you'll see there's a little search bar. And that search bar is for that channel only. And then you just type it in. Put in skin cream. Put in infused oil. Put in whatever it is that you're looking for. Ginger, comfrey. And it should pull up that video. I say should, because that's another one of those little tricks that sometimes, like my black seed video I did several years ago, it's actually still a pretty popular video, but it's almost impossible to find through the search, even for me. You have to know the full name of the video for that one to pull up. Otherwise, you'll never find it. I think it's called The Benefits of Black Seed, parentheses, Nigella sativa. I think that's the full name. It's like, why did they make that one so hard? They did that for a while on my video on thyroid and how we got off our thyroid medication. It used to be I could just type in thyroid and it would pull that video right at the top. And then for a short period of time you did that, you could not find that video. It would not pull up. It would not show up at all. I had to search and search and search to find my own doggone video. Now I think it's back to where you can just type in thyroid and it will pull up that video, plus the one I did in 2022, because that other one was me and Patrick, and that was in 2018, and then I did an update on it in 2022. But we've been off our thyroid medications for 11 or 12 years, something like that. So yeah, and we did it on our own without any oversight by anyone. Took a chance, did my own research, and did it. Is black seed like cumin? I think sometimes it's called black cumin, but it's not the same thing. Sometimes it's called black sesame, but it's not black sesame. I even said that in the video because sometimes it's called that, but it's not the same thing. Nigella sativa is the botanical name. And they're just little black seeds. You can get black seed oil. It's got a strong flavor. I like adding the seeds to my my yeast bread. If I'm making a sweet thing like cinnamon rolls or something, I won't put the black seeds in there. I won't add them to pancakes because I don't like the flavor and something like that. But I do add it to my honey infused garlic though, the black seeds. I like that. I am making vanilla extract and see there is a lot of floating things. I don't really know what the floating things are, unless it's just the pieces of the vanilla. You got to understand that anytime you're extracting anything, especially in alcohol, things are going to kind of start to dissolve a little bit. You're going to have pieces that are going to break off and float. That's normal. As long as it's the same color as the vanilla beans, you should be fine. Greetings from Denmark. Hello. I leave the seeds in my vanilla extract. That could be it. Could be the seeds. I just like, yeah, I sorry, I'm kind of having a brain cramp now. Okay. Well, people, I do need to get going. It's almost been an hour and a half. I think it has been an hour and a half, and I only meant to be on here for 30 minutes. So 3 times as long as I meant to be. But it was a good discussion. We got a few questions asked and answered. So my plan is, by the way, to try to do this at least once a month. And it'll always be on a Sunday. And I'm going to try to shoot for always doing it at noon. I might do them twice a month. Definitely not next Sunday though, because I've got that interview going on at the same time. So I'm really excited about it. So anyway, I hope you all have a great rest of your Sunday, and just know that these live shows are not ever going to replace my regular Monday through Friday videos. These are simply an added bonus, and it is fun. I'm so glad that I can finally do these again after 7 years. It's just fun. I really, really enjoy the interaction, even though you get to see me, making mistakes and not being able to cut them out. I do that just to make a more smooth video when you're watching it, and to also shorten it because it makes the upload speed, uploading it a little bit easier. So anyway, but yes, I'm human. I make mistakes. I and I and I say the wrong things, and that's what I do. And sometimes I tell you bad information, but I try to make sure that I correct it as soon as possible. If I don't do it in another video, I also make sure I put it in a pinned comment below that very video where I said the wrong thing. So anyway, take care all. God bless. And thanks for dropping in. Did it end?